Welcome to Firearms Friday here at the Wyoming State Museum in Cheyenne. I'm Evan Green. I'm a volunteer here at the museum and have been working under the supervision of the staff to update the inventory on the firearms in the permanent collection. And we've kind of a puzzle here, and we're hoping that a viewer may be able to give us some insight on what's going on with these rifles, these particular carbines. These are both model 1894 Winchester lever-action carbines in caliber .30-30. And the Winchester model 1894 was the first civilian sporting rifle designed specifically to take smokeless powder. And it was a big switch because prior to this, the main hunting rifles in the United States tended to be large bore black powder cartridges that shot a heavy bullet at a fairly low velocity. So all of a sudden you've got smokeless powder, which allows you as a firearms designer to make a robust rifle that is designed to fire a smaller caliber cartridge at a much higher rate of speed with perhaps greater terminal efficiency than your old black powder 4570, 3855, that genre of black powder cartridges. Turned out to be fairly popular. Over the years, between 1894 and I think Winchester stopped making them 2006. They made over 7 million 1894, or as they became known, simply Model 94 Winchester rifles in a variety of calibers. So again, the first sporting cartridge to utilize smokeless powder. Now, the conundrum we have, or the puzzle, has to do with a dozen of these carbines. And we'll take a quick look. They're what was referred to as a saddle ring carbine. And none of them came to us with the saddle ring intact. You can see here the hole where the stud would have been threaded in and the ring attached. I think this one still has the stud intact, but not the ring. So, in 1981, when the old penitentiary in Rawlins closed, the Corrections Department very generously transferred 14 firearms to the Wyoming State Museum, and 12 of them were these 1894 or Model 94 carbines in caliber .30-30. And I have an affection for firearms that were used. I think they all have an interesting story to tell. I think it's interesting here. You see this shiny spot right here on the barrel and a corresponding wear on the receiver. That's right at the balance point where someone would have carried that rifle or that carbine for an 8-hour shift on the wall at the state penitentiary. And it was probably carried 24/7 by somebody. So anyway, these carbines came to us, and as we went through the inventory, we got looking at the scratches that are on the frame of these rifles. And some of these date back to the 19-teens, early 1920s. There were other Model 94 carbines that were acquired in the late 50s and early 60s that don't have these markings. But if you take a close look, you can see that there are those scratches or striations, and they're on both sides of the receiver. So what the heck? And some of the speculation has been, well, they were taken in and out of a rack 3 times a day for 50 years. But what's curious is if you look closely, you'll see that the scratches, the striations, do not cross the screw heads or the pins. What's that all about? Had it been in and out of a saddle scabbard, in and out of a rack, some board guard with a nail. Those scratches and striations, we think, should have shown up on the pins and on the screw heads, but they don't. And these two carbines are probably the worst. I'll pull that other one up so you can get a look at it as well. So these two are probably the worst. And it's hard to believe that they would have come that way from the factory. Were they seconds? Would Winchester have released rifles to the general public that were in that condition to start with? That seems to make no sense. But, oh, wait, the state does what? They go to the low bidder, right? They're always looking for a bargain, and maybe these were bargains. Maybe Winchester said, listen, we have some that kind of didn't come out of the machining process as nice as they should have. Would you be interested in buying them at a discount? Don't know. We've reached out to some folks involved with the prison back in those days, and unfortunately have not been able to make contact or get an explanation for what's going on with these particular carbines. And again, there's a dozen of them. These two are the worst in terms of those scratches. So please, if you have any idea, any thoughts about how that might have occurred, please get in touch with us and let us know. So anyway, a dozen saddle ring carbines that were used by the guards at the Wyoming State Penitentiary until 1981 when they were transferred to the museum. We also got one Savage 99 in .30-30 caliber and one double-barreled shotgun that doesn't seem to fit with what was going on at the time. So anyway, at this point, we're going to take the rifles out of camera range and put them away, and we'll take a look at a black powder cartridge that was originally, it had been chambered in other rifles, but the Model 94 was originally chambered in 2 black powder cartridges, and it wasn't until 1895 that they came out with the .30-30, the smokeless version. So excuse the interruption while we make ourselves safe here and put the rifles away. Okay, we've put the rifles or the carbines back in storage, and I wanted to point out the differences that I mentioned before between what had been the traditional black powder cartridges and the new and improved, wonderful smokeless powder .30-30 round. So this one in the middle here is a 4570, and that was the standard cartridge from 1873 till about 1892 for both infantry and cavalry. It was a black powder round. It was very powerful. It was also very popular with the civilian population for big game or buffalo hunting or against hostile adversaries. So that was what was kind of the state of the art for many years in terms of a big game hunting cartridge. Black powder, heavy bullet, 400 to 500 grain bullet, 70 grains of black powder, kicked like a mule, but did the business on the muzzle end as well. So as I mentioned in the video earlier, the Model 1894 Winchester was originally chambered in 2 black powder cartridges. And this one here is one of those cartridges. It is a 3855. And as with the 4570, the naming convention is that it is a 38 caliber, actually .375, but they tended to round up, and 55 grains of black powder. This is also quite an effective round. I happen to own a Marlin rifle that's chambered in this cartridge. It's very accurate, kind of a fun gun to shoot, and not nearly as much recoil as the 4570. So here's the new kid on the block. If you think of 1894 as being new, this is a .30-30. While this was a 400 to 500 grain bullet, this was a standard loading was a 255 grain bullet. You're talking here in the .30 caliber, smaller diameter, and a 150 or 170 grain bullet was standard in the 30-30, but it was going much faster, which increased the efficiency of its terminal effect on game or your adversaries. So anyway, there's just a real brief overview of, and the Model 94, by the way, was never chambered in 4570. There were other Winchester models that were, specifically the Model 1886 Winchester was chambered in 4570 as well as other calibers. But the 94 came out, started with 3855 and another black powder cartridge. What was that? That was the, can't think of it. Anyway, 3855, 4570, and the 3030, the first commercial smokeless powder cartridge. Thanks.